Howdy there. My name is Crow. I am an artist who buys way too many art books, ranging from video games, TV shows, anime, or any other of my nerdy interests. I figured, since I have all these, why not showcase and recommend some art books to other nerdy artists out there and hope they give you a little inspiration. This is the Otaku Artist Bookshelf. Because the other art book that I wanted to talk about was this. This is one of my favorite art books to have come out in a long time. Ultra Artworks by Kohei Horikoshi, aka the guy who made My Hero Academia. Now, a lot of people have a lot of thoughts about My Hero. A lot of people have, not great thoughts on My Hero and the way that it kind of went and whatnot, and that's not what's important here. What's important is the artistry of Kohei Horikoshi, who I consider one of the greatest in all of Shonen Jump's history. And this was an art book that he recently released for the end of My Hero Academia. And it features a lot of his promotional artwork, a lot of character concepts, and a lot of just incidental art that he made on his own online. And I think it's probably one of my favorite art books of all time from a manga creator, because this dude, this is the epitome of somebody who just loves to draw. And I think that is the key to just being a good artist. He's loving drawing. And God, let's just go through it. Let's just go through it. Even at its earliest point, My Hero had just such a distinct look to it, Kohei Horikoshi's early stuff definitely was very, drab in terms of his shading techniques, because he was still learning how to do proper values and colors at the time. And he's even mentioned this before in interviews and whatnot. But as time went on, he got a lot better at doing, kind of value studies, working with a lot more vibrant colors, doing painterly stuff. He's somebody who never, and it's very clearly when you look at all his stuff, he's somebody who never stopped learning. The way that I would describe his art is just intense, but in a good way. It's intense in a way that just screams at you, much like how a lot of comic book art does. You would see things like that, like vibrant colors, very expressive characters, a jump from cartoony to just the most tightest anatomy you've ever seen in a manga, right? Crazy character group shots. This is something Horikoshi excelled at like crazy, is these character multiple character group shots of characters just doing stuff. He loved it. Drawing your character in the white void be damned. This dude just loved putting stuff together like this. Now, this is this in particular, when I look at this particular artwork of Deku, it's very clear that he was inspired by Mike Mignola, right? And that's something that I really appreciate about Horikoshi, is that My Hero Academia, for all it is a love letter to comic books. Not just manga, but American comics, French comics, comics of all kinds, There's a clear love for things like the golden age of comics with Superman and all that stuff, and also a love for the 90s, Image Comics Spawn era of things as well. You could definitely see in a lot of the way he draws Bakugo, it's oh yeah, there's that Image Comics late 90s Wolverine / Spawn / things of that nature energy there. Like I said, did not shy away from the group shots at all. He loved doing these, right? And very vibrantly loved putting them in new outfits all the time. And then these crazy illustrations where just went insane with doing these mechanical designs, bunch of details on this stuff. Look at the pouches. Look at that's some Rob Liefeld pouches right there. There was definitely an adoration for that 90s X-Men cables, pouches, and all that stuff. Horikoshi 100% was a kid who loved 90s Spider-Man, Todd McFarlane Spider-Man, Jim Lee X-Men. There is such a there you go. This is the most Spawn Image Comics thing you will ever see in anything manga related, right? 100%. There is just an adoration for comic books, and it just shines through so much. And this art book in particular I love because it collects so many of these art pieces, which were just like these 2-page spreads in the manga, right? And gives them to you in like a full illustrative, like, you know, level. This massive page, like this is my hand compared to the page. Like you get full on detail of this stuff, and it's so good, right? Cover gallery, and then these would be the covers of a lot of the manga, right? And then you see his art style kind of evolving as time goes on, like the way he draws Deku, like, you know, from the beginning, his eyes, his face's features are getting a little bit more square, less rounded. Characters still have these blocky proportions, but are a little bit more full. There's something about the way that Horikoshi draws physiques that I really like. It's like these characters are heroes. They're muscular, they're fit, they're not just skinny. They're not just like supermodels. They're actually like, they got meat on the bone, you know? And I love that. And then these sort of shots like this, so good. Ensemble shots where you're showing not just the heroes, but the villains like this, man, they really remind me of just that 90s like era of comics. And then this is the most Studio Ghibli inspired thing ever, and it's clear because if you look online, Horikoshi was doing like Ghibli fan art like way back in the day as well. But you can see a lot of like blending of a lot of his interests going from, you know, piece to piece, from character to character, even from the way his art style has evolved. Like here's a more painterly look, here's a more high contrast comic book like illustrative look, you know. He was able of jumping from one look to another so seamlessly. My God, this is one of my favorite character ensemble shots because it's just the characters doing a bunch of silly poses that show off their personalities. You know, even the perspective, the foreshortening, and everything. It's dynamic, and it makes it so like you're drawn to every character in an interesting way, and then you're drawn back to Deku, who's just standing there, right? There's something about the fact that he's the only one not doing an interesting pose that is like so appealing because it draws your eye around the entire image back to him. He's the center, he's like the focal point. But then as time goes on, you see the art style starts to evolve, things start getting more experimental, things start even getting more dynamic. This angle of Bakugo, how the hell do you pull this off? Because this is already a art piece that's doing a fisheye kind of technique of the characters kind of warping, but the fact that like Bakugo is coming in at this angle from this perspective with this anatomy is insane. But you can see it, you could see the way the image curves around the characters and how they build this sort of direction, right? And then here is where the story starts getting into darker tones. I've said this a bunch before, but I feel like Horikoshi would 100% make one of the greatest like horror manga out there if he just let loose, because his dark imagery is so amazing. And then this is when he put all the characters in fantasy attire. And look at that. Look at the way he represents like all the characters and their attire, what classes they would be. They would be knights, if they would be barbarians, if they would be wizards and mages, and the way that it's so detailed. It's not just like, oh, we put some Ren Fair attire on. It's like, no, look at the stitching on the gloves, on the patterns on the vests and stuff. Like, it's insane the amount of detail that Horikoshi would go into. It's almost absurd, right? But it makes it so interesting to go back and revisit this artwork and be like, man, there's just so much there. And again, this is where the character design started evolving as well. Like, you know, like Deku here is getting, again, more sharper features. His eyes are less rounded, they're more square now. There's more definition to this character as time goes on. He's getting edgier. And same can be said about a lot of the characters. Horikoshi does not shy away from sharp edges, right? Also, fun little him as Sanji for like a little like fun crossover thing. But then you can skip ahead, like, you know, this sort of artwork I love because it's something that's bygone. It's when artists used to draw their characters with just a bunch of insane gear and tech. And this again reminds me of that 90s era of like comic book characters who just had all this weird tech on them that probably didn't serve much of a purpose, but was just really cool to look at, you know? A pain to draw 100%, but like just really cool. But then as we keep going on, the art again starts evolving. You see that his colors are popping more. They're less bland, they're less, you know, muted. Now you're seeing some vibrancy in just all the hues that he's throwing into something. and it shows an artistic evolution. He said, I want to learn how to use color better, and he committed, and you can see it here. And then you get pieces like this, a continuation of the fantasy art piece, but with a more watercolor style, and you can even see his just skill popping off the page here. Look at that. Like, this looks like the cover of some JRPG, like a Tales of game, or some random RPG from the 90s that people don't remember. And it's so good. Like, looking through this art book makes me really want Horikoshi to either make a horror series or make a fantasy series, because man, does he have the knack for it. And then even when he's doing like a more graphical style thing, where it's just black and white or like high contrast thing, it works so well. This is a guy who is so in his element, it's scary. And he just doesn't stop. The more you go through this book, the more you see him just keep on growing and getting better, drawing anatomy a lot tighter, drawing hands amazingly, his colors looking better and better and better, adding more detail, but in places where it matters. Like, look at this. You can't tell me that this dude did not read 90s Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee, and like Todd McFarlane comics. Cause look at this. This is the most like X-Force looking stuff out there. And it's awesome. For somebody like me who grew up in this era of comic books, I think it's very cool to see somebody that was inspired by that and just going full force with it and saying, hey, you know what? Let's draw a bunch of little belts and straps and pouches on characters. What do they do? Who cares? And of course, a fan favorite, you gotta know how to draw, just a really attractive lady. And is not afraid to give her muscles. Like a lot of muscles. Man, Horikoshi loves drawing muscular women. And then also the most dynamic, like, angle you've ever seen of a character. Insane. Oh, this is one of my favorites. The way the warm hues all come together, the high contrast, like, very, like, old comic book paper style to it. Just so nice. So well done. And then more of a steampunk aesthetic. Like I said, jumping from place to place to place, but still having everything fit within his character's, aesthetics is just impressive. The more you look at it. Little incidental pieces kind of showing off characters and what they're doing in their off time. And it's really cool. Like this, such a stark contrast from what we were seeing at the beginning, where it seemed like he was almost afraid of using color. Now he's just throwing it everywhere and it works. This book, I think more than any mangaka's art book out there, really does show you how you can evolve your style, but still keep it recognizable. It's about tweaking little things at a time, improving just incrementally enough that it's not jarring, right? Because a lot of the time you'll read manga and be like, oh wow, this manga looks completely different from the beginning. But with My Hero, Horikoshi did a good job of just getting better at the things he was already pretty good at, right? And so you didn't notice that change in art style as much unless you actually go back and compare like page 1 to the last page. But as you're going through it, you're just seeing not only the characters grow, but also him grow as an artist. And again, these ensemble shots, like insane. I would love to see a breakdown of how long it takes him to do one of these and the process of doing them, because I would not be able to keep track of this many characters all at once. And especially with this many like perspectives and angles and whatnot. And again, another continuation of that fantasy series. And again, you can see how the art style evolved, how the colors still remain vibrant, how the characters' costumes have evolved too since the first time we saw them. More detailed armor work, more ornamentation, more like metal objects, just in general, a capacity for better detail and just like, expanding on the characters' designs, but while still being true to them. Like, you can't look at this and tell me that Horikoshi was not one of the best artists that Shonen Jump had on a week-to-week basis. Like, insane that he was pumping out art like this nearly weekly. Isn't that crazy? And for all its faults, for however you feel about where the story went, you can't deny that Horikoshi really was spoiling us when it came to just the best artwork you've ever seen in a weekly shonen like manga. And the more I look at this book, the more I get to show this off, the more I really look forward to whatever he's doing next, because man, it's really gonna be something. And these are like all his Twitter artworks as well. amazing. You could still go on his Twitter page and find all these, and it's really cool that he was just doing this for like the anime as it was coming out, and these pieces are genuinely so incredible. So yes, 100%. If you were a fan of My Hero, or if you just thought, man, those character designs look so sick, I 100% recommend this book, Ultra Artworks. This is the Japanese version. I believe an English version is available already, but I got this because I couldn't wait and I just really wanted to comb through as many of Horikoshi's works, like in full detail as possible. But I 100% recommend it. Even if you're not the biggest My Hero fan, you can't deny that this is some of the best like weekly shonen artwork out there, right? Hey there, so this is a little bit of a post voiceover just to kind of explain. So I did this video and the previous one of the art book series back to back live on stream as a little experiment. Don't worry, in the future these are going to go back to being scripted like I originally had planned for them to be, a little bit more tighter and you know, whatnot. I just wanted to do it this way to kind of get back into it and, you know, warm up, I guess. But thank you so much for checking these videos out, and please look into these art books, look into the artists behind them, and really dive deep to learn something new. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked it, leave a comment and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, peace.